Create effective marketing campaigns in minutes. MailChimp's AI auto-generates emails and automations, like sending abandoned cart messages.
Spent most of the season in the player assistance program. Starts too if Swayman does struggle with the workload. I'm not overly concerned about this happening though. Of 90.3, he showed how great he could be last year. I am expecting him to be the full-time starter, about 55 games, with Reimer as the backup. I know a lot of other fantasy hockey channels have Levi listed as the backup, but I'm not seeing it, guys, because it also ride him in the play. He does belong in this position as long as he gets the 55 starts that he got last year. Varlamov did look like the better goalie towards the end of the year last year, and they did also ride him in the playoffs. But I can't imagine they give up on Sorokin so quickly. They should feed him plenty of starts early on in the season, and if he isn't atrocious, he should get plenty more. At number 10, I have Stuart Skinner, and he is one of the safest picks in the draft. Honestly, he's super not risky. He is the guy in Edmonton. I think that a lot of people hate on him, but he's a very good goalie and doesn't have a lot of competition. He's on a very good Edmonton team. Should get a lot of wins. At number 11, I have Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. He's the first kind of steal of the draft, all the way down to ADP of 90.3. He showed how great he could be last year. I am expecting him to be the full-time starter, about 55 games, with Reimer as the backup. I know a lot of other fantasy hockey channels have Levi listed as the backup, but I'm not seeing it, guys, because Levi, if they wanted him to play, why would they have signed Reimer? I think Levi is going to be their AHL guy this year. They're going to try to develop him as much as possible so that in the future, Levi is a really great goalie. But right now, I think this is UPL's time, or 6K as I like to call him on this channel. I like him a lot this year, got him at number 11. At number 12, I have Jacob Markstrom, an ADP of 59.1. New Jersey, after missing the playoffs last year, are one of the Cup favorites. Let's see if Markstrom lives up to the hype. I'm expecting a full starter share of games, about 55 or so, with Jake Allen absorbing the rest. At number 13, Jordan Binnington. He quietly had a very good season last year, with Hofer breathing down his neck, and I'm expecting the same from him this year, with Hofer continuing to breathe down his neck, about 55 starts or so, and Hofer getting the rest. At number 14, Alexander Georgiev is someone who I have big concerns about, which is why I've dropped him so much. I do think Justus Annunen is a pretty solid backup, and I can see him eating into his workload this year. There's no way he gets 62 starts once again. I think Annunen could, if he continues to play well and play better than Georgiev, could eat into as many as half of the starts in Colorado. At number 15, Linus Ullmark. Is he finally the answer for them in nets? I think so. Stats obviously won't be as good as they were in Boston, but I'm still expecting a pretty solid season as the full-time starter in Ottawa. I have him as my number 15 goalie. At number 16, I have Tristan Jarry. I'm projecting him for about 55 starts, but it could be less if Nedeljkovic continues to impress like he did last season at the end of the year. I'm not overly high on Jarry this year, which is why I have him at number 16. Give starts to Grubauer. I see him getting about 50 starts. Montreal is improving every single year with more and more young talent, and I see them being happy.
Wonderful. I am skeptical of the level of volume that Rashawn Johnson will have this week. And it's not just the recency bias of DeAndre Swift. I feel like with DeAndre Swift and that Chicago backfield, we never truly know which direction it's going to go. It's very situational. It's very in terms of whether or not they think Swift is the correct matchup here. And I think that kind of goes back to the type of runner that he is, because Chicago's offensive line is just straight up bad. So if they're in a bad matchup, they can say, okay, all right, we maybe don't need to have DeAndre Swift getting the bulk of carries in this situation. But when we're looking at Dallas's defense this week, when we're looking at the defense that he's facing this week, I kind of feel like this is a good situation for Roshan to get volume, but he has to contend with DeAndre Swift. This is a good matchup for him. So while Rico Dowdle's matchup isn't good, this might be a situation where Roshan is just going to play second fiddle to DeAndre Swift. It's very risky. We know the volume that Roshan is going to get. So I do lean towards Roshan. I know it's a very difficult matchup, but known volume over the possibility of the Chicago backfield being exactly what we can't expect, unfortunately. It's just so volatile. They were that way last year. It's not changing again. Obviously, that feels like an Eberflus thing. So I think it continues for the remainder of the season. From Annabelle De La Cruz, Addison, Cooper, or Tank. Um, so Tank did return to practice this week, although just in general practice, if I don't have to play a player coming off of an injury, especially one whose production has been volatile, I lean away from that direction. So Tank I would eliminate from that consideration. So it comes down to Addison or Cooper, and it's tough because Cooper has such a fantastic matchup this week. When we're looking at him and the possibility of what he could do compared to Addison in a more difficult matchup, I lean towards Cooper. I know the volatility that he has, but it's such a good matchup. I can't pass it up. Cleveland is going to have to throw because I do think that Jaden Daniels is going to truly exploit that offense. So we're leaning towards Amari Cooper on that one. Would you trade Jordan Mason for? Would you trade Jordan Mason for Brees Hall for the long haul? I would do that. I would do that, and I know it's going to be painful. It's going to be painful because Jordan Mason has a fantastic matchup this week, and as long as Christian McCaffrey is out, Mason is going to continue to be the RB1. I mean, let's look at the matchups coming up real quick. So we've got Arizona this week. Excellent matchup. Seattle was exploited by the Detroit run game, so that could be a potential strong matchup for Jordan Mason. Kansas City difficult matchup. Dallas is a fine matchup against the run. And then we've got a bye week. So yeah, you're foregoing basically 4 games potentially here. And then maybe we see Christian McCaffrey back after the bye week here. I'm okay with making that trade. We talked earlier in the live about the fact that Brees Hall, prior to this past week, was still operating as a borderline RB1 depending on the matchup. So we're not panicked about Brees Hall. Long term, I think that is a good direction for you to go. It's a good trade. Good trade. I like the logic around that one. From Jason Rodriguez, need to drop 1 for a kicker. Dell, Waddle, JMO, Cup, Leggett, Whittington, Jennings, Bijan, JK Mostert, Madison, Roshan. Yeah, you love the wide receiver upside. I like the wide receiver upside that you have as well. I lean towards dropping Whittington. We haven't seen a massive, and I feel like I feel like with Jordan Whittington, I feel like some of that is him being a preseason darling, right? We looked at him and we saw him in preseason. He looked fantastic. We kept thinking, oh my gosh, is this the new Puka Nacua? Is this a rookie that's going to have a fantastic breakout? Now he's got the opportunity, right, because of the injuries. But I honestly don't know if the upside is there in the way that we want it to be. I would prefer to keep the other guys. If I'm looking at look at Xavier Leggett stepping up within that offense. We got Andy Dalton coming in at quarterback. The progression of him in that offense, he's clearly, in my opinion, the clear wide receiver too. Juwan Jennings, you want to keep him on your bench because we know that he's a cheat code for when one of the San Francisco receivers goes down. So Whittington is the one that I would drop. I wouldn't budge on any of your running backs. I like the depth you have right there. You feel you're very safe at that point. So you're top heavy with Bijan. So I would not drop any of those running backs. I would lean towards Whittington as the one. This is an interesting comment here. Yeah, I mean, from Shaka Zulu 12, I don't think McCaffrey is coming back. Yeah, it's a shaky situation, obviously. And we feel like we kind of get jerked around with McCaffrey in terms of whether or not he's coming back. And this is not the first time this has happened. And we really don't have any indication. The 49ers can legitimately just sit him for as long as they want to because they can win without him. So it is a risk trading away Jordan Mason. At the same time, you're trading him away for another RB1. So long term, I see the value in it. From Ryan Michael, Dobbs, Addison, or Downs at flex. I lean towards Addison, even though it is an awful matchup. It is a, again, typically wide receiver ones tend to get locked down in that matchup. So Addison could still have some pop to him. I would prefer to start Addison, even in the bad matchup. Brees for ETN and Diggs. I got a problem with Brees. I'm sorry, I got a problem with ETN. ETN is somebody who just keeps falling further and further back into my rankings. And when I look at him and the output that he's had this season, it's highly concerning. We're talking about somebody who hasn't finished in half PPR above RB20, right? Somebody who's been dealing with injuries off and on here, kind of, and the lack of a ceiling here in this offense that unfortunately doesn't have a schedule that kind of gets much friendlier. Indianapolis is a good matchup, but then you get Chicago, you get New England. Green Bay has been kind of wishy washy in their matchup. Minnesota. So there's quite a few bad matchups ahead for him. Travis Etienne, I just don't feel like he has that RB1 upside, unfortunately. So if you're looking for a wide receiver, I'm okay with making that trade for Diggs because obviously he's been performing at a top 10 level at this point. But the trade for Brees down to ETN, just know that you are making a little bit of a jump down there, unfortunately. Let's see some more questions here. Yeah, let's stay on that ETN track there. What do we do with ETN? So because he is in theory performing at a RB2 level, we're still rolling him out here. Unless you've got better options, unless you're super deep at running back, you can go ahead and start someone else. But at the end of the day, at the very least, he's a flex option. So we're starting him at this point. But if you put him on the trade block and somebody bites, I'm 100% okay with that. I think you're probably selling him before his value truly bottoms out. We saw an uptick in the Jags offense looking generally better last week. And again, they have a good matchup this week. So maybe we'll get a good performance out of him and you can sell him maybe coming off a good performance here. But I just don't feel like we're going to see a massive turnaround for the Jags offense overall. The only person that I like in that offense is Brian Thomas, who I think as we kind of progress through the season can be the only little diamond that shines in that offense. So everybody else, I'm okay with trading away just because I don't see true massive upside for either of them. Devonta Smith or Cooper Kupp rest of season. Kupp, I feel like is less of a risk to not come back. Again, we do have to be concerned about the fact that the Rams offense or the Rams team as a whole is struggling. So when you get these older veterans, perhaps you get, prolonged absences if the Rams don't feel like they can compete. That said, I lean towards Devonta Smith rest of season. Devonta should be back after the bye week here, so you'll get to use him coming up. It was a concussion, so we don't have to worry about any lingering effects there, as opposed to Cooper, who would have the issue of possible recurrence of his injury even when he comes back. Trade question: Robinson for Neighbors while on concussion. I assume that is. I don't know what Robinson that is. I don't know if that's Brian or Bijan. I assume that it's, and I assume that's not Wandale. What Robinson is that, Kendo? What Robinson is that? Oh wow. The Giants? You would be trading away Wandale to get Neighbors? I mean, that's massive. Is someone, yeah, if someone's offering that, yeah. There's no scenario where I would want to trade away Malik Neighbors at this point. If you can acquire Malik Neighbors in any way, shape, or form, absolutely do that. If someone is, desperate and they need to use, excuse me, if they need to use a wide receiver this week, and obviously when we have concussions, we know more than likely the player is not going to play this week, and you can get somebody to make that trade, yeah. But Neighbors is someone that we have to hold on to. I don't know which side you were on that one. Start question at tight end. We haven't talked about tight ends at all this week. Let's pit stop on tight ends for a second. And speaking of pit stop, the question is Kyle Pitts or Pat Fryermuth. I have Pat Fryermuth ranked higher this week. Pat Fryermuth has been he's been interesting this season. I haven't found myself leaning towards starting him, but he has been um, consistently usable. Yeah, let's phrase it that way. Consistently usable. He's got targets. He's had a minimum of 4 receptions in every single game this year. That's more than we can ask for from a lot of people here. He's kind of borderline a tight end one right here, coming off of that strong game against Indianapolis. I don't hate this matchup against Dallas. I mean, remember, Dallas is without Micah Parsons this week, so their defense is going to look a lot different overall. That is a major player being removed from their defense. It affects both the pass and the ground game. So, Pat Fryermuth this week, I don't mind this matchup against Dallas. So, I would lean Fryermuth over Dallas. This is a very intriguing week. We did talk about Travis Kelce rising up in the rankings this week. We've also got Trey McBride coming back from the concussion. We did get confirmation that he's returning to practice, so we're feeling positive about that. We've got Tucker Kraft rising up in the rankings here. I've got him ranked as a top 10 tight end this week against the LA Rams. Fantastic matchup here. We've got Mark Andrews falling further back into the rankings as we kind of let's hit Mark Andrews here for a second. Mark Andrews, because I think I saw some questions earlier and I might have missed them, unfortunately, about are we dropping Mark Andrews? What are we doing here? I don't feel like this is the week to drop Mark Andrews. I did a video. I did a video on TikTok actually. So if you're on TikTok and later you want to go and check that out, talking about and it was before this past week's game, talking about what is happening over there in Baltimore and the fact that speculating that it's really truly just that they are emphasizing the run and utilizing the tight ends to block. That turned out to be extremely correct. We saw that again last week. And when we're looking at this week, again, this is a great matchup for Derrick Henry, a great matchup for Baltimore to rely on the ground game here. But this is a matchup where Cincinnati's defense is legitimately terrible across the board. So if they want to, they can exploit Cincinnati through the air. It's possible that they look at this matchup and say that they don't want aggressive volume on Derrick Henry and they want to utilize the pass game a little bit more. So this is a good matchup to say I'm giving it one more week with Mark Andrews. I want to see how he fits into this offense in a situation where we've got an offense that is a aggressive pass team that can take advantage of this Baltimore secondary, that can have a competitive back and forth game here. And we've got a very exploitable defense through the air that Mark Andrews could take advantage of as well. So this is our final baseline game here. Baltimore against Cincinnati is our final baseline game here. We know what Baltimore wants to do when the best way for them to win the game is to not attack through the air and rely on the ground game. It eliminates the tight ends from contention there because they're blocking. Now we want to see what happens when you've got a scenario where you're facing a defense that is very exploitable through the air. This will tell us everything that we need to know. So we are keeping Mark Andrews in our starting lineups for one more week. And this is our gauge right here. This tells us all. If he can't put up in this game, that's it. We're done. We're cutting him loose. So one more game. One more game here. Let's do a few more questions here, and then we're gonna close things out. I lost Rashi, and I am looking to trade for wide receiver value. What do you think about Saquon? Ooh. What do you think about Saquon and Chase for Tyreek, Kyron, and Debo? I know you're trying to get volume there, but in terms of needing additional bodies, but I can't do that. Saquon, again, it was a weird week last week, but on a consistent weekly basis, his upside is going to be a little bit higher than Kyron. And I feel like he's a little bit safer option. Now, Jamar Chase, trading away Jamar Chase for Tyreek Hill and Debo Samuel. I mean, it's quite the combo long term, but if you're suffering right now, I would just prefer to hit waiver wires. Unfortunately, I would just prefer to hit waiver wires and stream and make it work, or try and make secondary trade options. Give me 1 second, buddy, and try to make secondary trade options. Okay, just go around over here. I'm my son's looking for a charger in the background over here and stealing my charger. That's okay. The show's gonna end soon, so he can steal my charger. Since that's laughing in the background over here as he steals my charger while I'm in the middle of a show and then does not close the door behind him on my live show. Thank you, buddy. All right. We're back here as I've been as a little thief came through and stole from me. Let's wrap things up here with a few more questions. Brian Robinson for Brian Robinson for Jameson Williams. Who wins? Now, Brian Robinson, obviously, the uptick in volume for him with Austin Eckler out was fantastic, and it was a good matchup here. This is a fairly even trade. Both of these guys have high upside, and both of them have situations where they're not going to put up an extreme amount of production. I still lean towards Brian Robinson as my preference there. It sucks that some of that volume is being taken away by Austin Eckler. It's really just taken up the Brian Robinson, if he is the RB1 of that offense, truly does have that top 10 ceiling. But unfortunately, Eckler takes just enough away from him, especially with receiving volume, that it just kind of caps him. So I still prefer Brian Robinson over Williams, but it's just by like a smidge. I wish we could get a little bit more for Robinson. Daniels. Oh, trade. What about Daniels for Neighbors? Oh, thank you for the gifts over here. I just saw it out of the corner of my eye. And this is right about the time where TikTok also forces me to validate that I'm still active. What about Daniels for Neighbors? If you're good at wide receiver and miserable at quarterback. Oh, I get that. I get that because I do think that Daniels has, at the very least, top 5 potential rest of season for sure. Top 3 could also be there. But I want man, you got to be real good at receiver in order to make that trade. You got to be real good there to make that trade. I don't know if I could do that. I know you might be struggling there. Streaming options are not fantastic. All the good ones have been snatched up at quarterback. I would want somebody to throw something else in there. I would want a little bit more with Daniels. So I would want Daniels and a piece for Neighbors. I wouldn't make that trade straight up, but I get what you're doing. But Neighbors has extreme upside rest of season. When is my precious Tua coming back from Beebs in the Trap? Which by the way, Beebs in the Trap is one of my favorite usernames because I get that reference, and that's literally one of my favorite usernames ever. So shout out to you for that username. When is my precious Tua coming back? Honestly, I believe that it's going to be week 8. I believe that's the target. I know he wants to come back. I know that people are, encouraging him to retire. I lean in the direction that he's a gamer. He wants to play. Apparently, reportedly, he's had no symptoms. And that's a good sign right there. I get why people don't want him to prioritize his health. But at the same time, if he's going weeks here and he's not dealing with issues, he's not having symptoms, I do expect him to come back, and week 8 is kind of the target timeline for that. So that's what I think. That's why I'm also pro trading for Miami Dolphins. If you are 3-1, 4-0, stashing them on your bench. Yeah. Got Leggett off waivers. Yeah. Got Leggett off waivers, tried Wicks, but obviously the higher priority waiver wire one. I think Leggett is a strong pickup there. I love the offense and the way that it's gelling with Andy Dalton. Even in a loss, again, the production was still excellent. I think that he plays perfectly off of Deontay Johnson. I believe that's that's a beautiful little 1-2 punch there. Even at some point, if we do see Thielen back, I think that the Panthers just prefer to go with the young guys in that offense. I think Leggett is a good long-term pickup for you. When we get these rookies that pop early, you want to lean into them. So you want to lean into Leggett. You want to lean into Brian Thomas. Yeah, I absolutely love Leggett as a pickup this week. You can get 3x. Ooh, you can get 3x on Mark Andrews on over 49.5 receiving yards on Pick'em's underdog. Yeah, betting on the A dot in the matchup at 3x. I really actually do like that one for sure. I do. Again, this is kind of a week where we're testing it out and we're seeing, because Cincinnati's defense, obviously a complete nightmare. Oh, you got Leggett and Brian Thomas. Brian Thomas is my boy. Really fell in love with him preseason. Really fell in love with him preseason. Got a lot of Brian Thomas shares. Then we'll do one more question. Hey, would you trade? We'll do a couple more. Would you trade Garrett Wilson for Higgins, Brian Thomas, and Kelsey Jr.? 100% do that now if it is on the table, except immediately. I love that trade. We were just talking about Brian Thomas there. Even Brian Thomas is the one part of the Jags offense that I love and I want to lean into. He's the clear alpha there. Obsessed with the progression that he can make throughout the season. Him being Calvin Ridley in that offense just makes so much sense. I think he has consistent top 24 upside there. Couple more questions here. Brees and Shaheed for Lamar and DK. Yeah, I like that trade. I would do that trade. It's always weird factoring in multiple positions, especially quarterback, but I like that trade for you. Your friend sent you a trade request. You get Hubbard and Mooney, and he gets Swift. Do I? I don't. Hubbard's got a timeline on him. With Jonathan Brooks coming back. Now, if you need to get a win, now granted, this is this is not a bad matchup for Swift too. So both Swift and Hubbard have good matchups this week. Oh, and I love Mooney, but I would lean towards keeping Swift. I do love Mooney, but I feel like you can get a Mooney level of production off waivers. So I lean that direction. I would not make that trade. Flex Hubbard, Sutton, Chase Brown, or Kareem Hunt. Flex and Hubbard this week. Again, Jonathan Brooks is now eligible, but we haven't heard in terms of whether or not he will be active in playing this week. It's Wednesday, so since we don't really have any indication on that one, even if he is active, I don't anticipate him making a ton of contribution to this offense. Again, he's a rookie coming off a significant injury. With Brooks, I kind of see him as someone who is going to start to, slowly make that progression in the offense. And then once we get to the back half of the season is when he can take over. So Chuba Hubbard is the guy that I would start this week. Chuba is a top 24 back for me for sure. I can't remember off the top of my head if I have him in the top 20. Let me look, actually. Just kidding. Yes, he's top 15 for me. I love that I can pull up rankings so fast. I can't ever remember rankings off the top of my head. One more question. Need a tight end, Goddard on a bye, Njoku or Ingram? Yeah. Njoku. It sounds like Njoku is going to return this week. So yeah, if you've got Njoku, or you saying Njoku is available for pickup, either way, yeah, if Njoku is the one is available, I lean that direction towards him. Again, good matchup here. Anytime Njoku's on the field, upside is high. I like that lineup for you. I like the overall team, Marlon. Excellent. One more question over here on TikTok. Would you trade Hall for Chase? My RBs are Kamara, Aaron Jones, and Mixon. Yes, I would do that. I think that's a good trade for you. Oh no, JT, what was your question? Should you start Trey? Is it Trey Tucker or Mason, or are you just saying should you start Trey Tucker? We'll do that one before you go. Clarify on that one for me. Sit Drake London this week. No, we're rolling out Drake London. He's a fine flex option. let's see here. We'll do one more while I'm waiting on. Okay. Trade Eckler and Ford for Hall PPR. To get Hall, yes, I would do that if that's what you're trying to do. But that's it. All right, guys. I'm sorry. I know I have a ton of questions, and I know I missed a lot, but sorry, I got distracted there at the end. Had kids kind of again coming in, which means that we should go ahead and wrap up this show because they're getting rowdy. Again, appreciate you all joining in. If I missed any of your questions, feel free to tag me, drop a comment either in my latest, because you guys are over on TikTok, drop a comment on my latest TikTok video, and I can answer there, or you can tag me on any other social media. Twitter's a good place as well. If you tag me there, I'll answer. Or if you're on YouTube, drop a comment in YouTube and I can get to it there. Other than that, appreciate you all joining in. Again, if you're not following, make sure that you're following me so you can get those notifications whenever I go live. And then just some closing stuff here for podcast purposes. Again, please be sure to subscribe to the podcast on all platforms. If you are not already subscribed, make sure that you are also subscribed to Player Profiler. And if you're in the mood for one more subscription, you can subscribe to me on literally anywhere. Other than that, I appreciate you all for tuning in. Good luck with your lineups. I hope we all get positive vibes this week and everything works out perfectly. I also hope we get a fantastic Thursday night game as well. Outside of that, thank you so much. Appreciate you all joining in. I will talk to you all again next week.
I like Bruins team with Cooch, Miller, Tage to start, and then you get McAvoy. Like that's solid. How are we feeling about Silos versus Corpusalo? Both likely start. I think Silos has more long-term fantasy value than Corpusalo does, because as soon as Swayman gets signed, like Corpusalo just becomes a legit backup, whereas Silovs could see a ton more volume even with Demko being in the lineup. What do you think about Markstrom this season? Love him. Absolutely love him. Chadlick then goes Mort Sider. Deacon then picks up Wyatt Johnson, and Yaz gets Connor Hellebuck. So Yaz doesn't have a defenseman yet. Huckle goes Otter. These are some quick picks flying off the board. Timmy finally goes round 4. I'm wondering if people were a little bit hesitant on him after seeing that hit. I think they're just under evaluation right now, but no cause for any major concerns. Yeah, I'm high on Markstrom because I believe that the Devils are going to be a top 10 team this year. And then, like, goaltending has really been their only missing piece. There might be some growing pains early on just because they changed a lot of their lineup. But, like, that just provides more opportunity for people to have buy lows. Thoughts on Logan Cooley? Do you think we will be drafting him inside the top 2 rounds a few years from now? I don't know if it's going to be that soon, Boomtown. I like him as a player a lot. It's just like in fantasy, he's one of those like low shot volume, high point total guys, which doesn't really translate well to most leagues. So then we see Zib go. That's a good pick there. John Carlson's a great second defenseman to grab. Clayton Keller is great value there, round 5. And then Yaz goes Vasilevsky to shore up his goaltending. Still hasn't picked a defenseman yet. Sebastian Aho's good value there, round 5. Jesper Bratt, again, you pair him with Timo Meyer. That's a good stack. Don't mind that. All Cats Bangers rather have Dougie or Dobson. That's tough, right? It depends. If it's a points league, it's probably Dobson. And I think categories leagues, I think I'd rather Dobson as well. Dougie still provides a lot of like risk with his injury history. But again, he could contest Yossi for most shots from a defenseman. So Svetch dropped to round 5. Wow, I thought he was gone already. I would have taken Svetch like 2 rounds ago. Hyman fell as well. Yeah, I'm taking Svetch before like probably before Wyatt, before Zib, before Keller, before Brad, before Aho. Caulfield's fine in this spot. Skinner is your first goalie, solid. Barkov. Again, you can take a centerman there because Jack Hughes has dual eligibility. Adrian Kempe, again, like a guy that I think should have been taken a little bit ago. It's just like we're seeing a lot of these. Excuse me, guys, still a little bit under the weather, but seeing a lot of these guys fall because of the run on defensemen. Goalies went way too quick in my draft, taking round 3. Talking round 3 was the start. I waited until round 11 to get Markstrom, round 15 to get Lundgren. If you got Markstrom round 11 in any league, that's a steal. Corpy as my third goalie right now. Should I drop him for Sheelovs? No, you're good. Like, Corp's going to be much more valuable early on in season, but Sheelovs I think will just hold more value from a long-term perspective. Steven Stamkos is a great pick there. Surprised he fell as well. Who's leading after 5? I'll do a recap after round 6. It's tough to tell like who's leading because I think you need to like look at like the entire team as a whole. Kreider, great pick. Especially in round 6, I like it. Darlene, Huge, Dunn, gonna be a killer trio. We'll see what we'll see what Dunn is like this season. I think like Seattle's just splitting their power play. So I don't really think it makes a difference if you're grabbing Montour or if you're grabbing Vince Dunn. They're going to be roughly the same value. Matheson's a good pick. It's likely he starts power play 1. It's a good second D to take. Swayman, okay. I don't know if I would have taken him this early, like round 6, but he fell to me like round 9 in the Creators League. So I'm curious. I'm curious. Faber, Trocheck. Trocheck's good value there as your second C. Remember, guys, there is the utility spot. Lettermacky won't make the team this year, but if you're in a dynasty, he'll probably be in the show next year. Yeah, I liked him. He looked good in camp. Damn, I totally thought the draft started an hour late. Rip. Emon. Oh, you're in now? Okay. Honestly, man, like, your team is not... I don't think it's, like, bad. Like, it could be a lot worse. Like, you have Yossi. You got double elite goalie. You've got Eichel, Caulfield, Barzell at this point. Like, you can cook in the next, like, 7 or 8 rounds. So keep an eye on you. Hits and blocks, Cat League. Do I drop Tarasenko for somebody like Jack Quinn, Tolvanen, or Zetterlund? So I have Tolvanen in a pretty similar league like that. I like him a lot. But I also... like... Zetterlund, probably maybe Zetterlund. I'm not high on Tarasenko this year. Pasta or Rantanen? Pasta. Pasta should almost always go before Rantanen just because of the shot volume. Kairu, that's good. It's a good pick, round 7. Olmark, okay. As your first goalie, I like that. Eric Carlson, Jake Sanderson. Yep. Some good second D. Okay, Seth Jarvis. I like that pick a lot. I had the 7th pick, took Rantanen, and then took a Darlene Hughes after that. One of them was gone by round 3. It's a good start. Matheson and Wawrinski in FPPL settings.